not only my upbringing, but now my study for a long time now as an adult, I believe that plant medicine is a lot more of a big gun than pharmaceuticals. I think where we shine in modern medicine is trauma care.
Let's ditch the quick fix and dive into today's conversation. Welcome, everyone. My guest today is Jane Barlow Christensen, the owner and operator of Barlow Herbal. Barlow Herbal is a company whose herbal mastery has been passed down generations in the Barlow family. Her father, Dr. Max Barlow, was a U.S. authority on medicinal plants and a specialist in plant taxonomy. Jane Barlow Christensen has grown up around herbs her entire life. She learned her father's trade working side by side with him in the field. Jane spends years of research carefully formulating healthy products that she uses and endorses. And she brings it in with great joy to her people that support her business, to pass on the traditions of her family and to release to the public formulas that Jane and her father have developed. So welcome, Jane. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be with you, Damon.
And, I just kind of build on that kind of brief intro there. There's a whole lot of history there with your family. If you could kind of share a bit of that, that would be awesome.
I was born in 1961, so I grew up in the 60s and 70s. And, it's every generation says life was simpler then, right? And
sure.
I think with technology and everything, but I grew up really unique even for those times. So first of all, I'm second oldest of 14 kids. So my parents had 11 natural kids. They adopted 3 Native American kids when they were all tiny. And so I grew up in this really big family with parents who were into everything natural. So not just was my dad a total geek about plants and what made them work and what was the Latin name and the common name. And I mean, we'd be driving somewhere as a family, and if he saw a plant that he wanted to identify and teach us about, he would pull over and we would literally all pile out and we would be having this little botany lesson on the side of the road. And sometimes it would be on the way to church, and we'd show up in church and we'd be a little bit dirty, but it was totally the most amazing, unique childhood. And I think when you grow up like that, I know that me and a lot of my siblings, we actually kind of fell away from that when we became adults, like in our 20s, because it was like you kind of shun what you grow up with. But all of us now, every one of us, my youngest sibling will be 40 this year. So we all now have come back to this like 100%. Like this is, and with the state of the world and the way people are seeing health in a whole different way, people are starting to realize that it's their responsibility. The plants that are, on the planet are here to help humans stay well. And I really feel like there's a real full circle moment for not just myself, but for a lot of humanity too. So, I just grew up in this really unique situation that I'm super grateful for. And of course, we could talk for a lot of hours, just stories of my childhood, for sure.
What a treasure that you had. And it's kind of to train up your children in the way that they should go, and they won't depart from it. And it might take a little bit of time. It's the same in my family. My kids, are around some healthy ideas that now they all kind of really embrace. And it's kind of cool for that to happen. What really is kind of the definition of an herbal? What does that really mean?
Well, people might be a little surprised, because I think when you like a normal modern person thinks about using herbals, it's really kind of foreign to them, because unless you have, maybe your grandma's cold, you get a cold and your grandma makes a concoction of stuff, or, because there's that from a lot of cultures and a lot of history from generations, there's that. But I think people are kind of intimidated by it. They don't really know what it means, because it's not just something that is a normal part of every day. But this is, in a really simple way, people need to realize that if you sprinkle cinnamon on your oatmeal, you're using an herbal, because cinnamon has a ton of properties to like balance blood sugar. It's good for your heart. I mean, there's just so things like that, like spices, even like things like cilantro. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing heavy metal detox. So there's things that you can that people are using that are really herbals. They're just in the place of, that's just part of your food, what you're actually. So when you're talking about things like medicinal herbals, this is where it can get a little bit more complicated, but then it's just simply learning. Once you learn about something, then the complication is no longer there. So.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things I think not to go down too far on this rabbit trail, but there's this difference between plant-based medicine and pharmaceutical-based medicine. And we've got this kind of sad assumption that the pharmaceutical approach has such more intelligence and opportunity, when in reality, plant-based, opportunity is far more complex and far more beneficial in so many ways, including when you have acute problems and or chronic problems like chronic illnesses, cancer, things of that nature. And I'm all for, the times when we do need to use something, I call them big guns, the pharmaceutical things. But plant-based medicine is so awesome and so far advanced. Man can't keep up. And any thoughts on that?
I think it's interesting because truly, just from not only my upbringing, but now my study for a long time now as an adult, I believe that plant medicine is a lot more of a big gun than pharmaceuticals. I think where we shine in modern medicine is trauma care. There's no doubt. I think that when we can replace an organ, when we can, the things that modern medicine can do, I think for chronic illness, in some cases acute illness, but this is again where if you're paying attention to all the subtle signs your body gives you, and you're paying attention to your health on a daily basis where it can compound or can compound in a negative way, if you don't, then you might need, the big guns it's just to me not natural.
Right.
But I do believe that modern medicine, I don't even like to call modern medicine traditional medicine, because to me, traditional medicine is herbs and holistic, more of a holistic approach, not just,
right.
not everything. So I think that it has its place. And I definitely think the two need to marry. But if you think about people who are afraid to use natural medicine, it's simply because they've never been taught to trust it. But we've been taught to trust, or at least if we are in enough fear for what we get diagnosed with, we'll do this because this is the model. So
right.
If we're in enough fear, and there's so much, think about everything that's put out in the media that over decades programs us. This is where we turn, and if we don't, then we're going to die, or whatever the scenario is.
Right.
But instead, why aren't we? So this is why people don't trust natural medicine, is because they just don't. They're not exposed to it. Yes. And it's just a matter of swapping that for this. Really.
Yeah, the education, and that's hopefully what we can do a little bit of today, just at least down the surface. But I agree with you. The trauma care is really the best part of, I think, our Western medicine. It is by far, I think, the best opportunity for patients to have that kind of opportunity with trauma. Yeah. But I think, when you consider the fear that we've been under this last 2 years specifically, that's been a huge part of the reason people only go to this one source, because that's the only thing that's not only are we putting people in fear with a messaging, we're giving these people this messaging that this is the only thing that can work for you, a shot and a mask. And so it's really kind of a sad combination. And so I'm hoping that we can, kind of change the cultural understanding a little bit to build your immune system. And, if you do need to use something that's a little bit more pharmaceutical at some point, you're going to have a better opportunity to survive if you do a better job with your base, right? I'm kind of rambling on there.
No, you're absolutely spot on. In fact, I think part of the reason that people do get so sick and sometimes don't even survive is because of the fear. Like, your emotional health plays a big part in your physical health. And if you are trapped in the emotion of fear and desperation, I mean, you know who Dr. Zach Bush is?
Yes.
So I love him. And
yes,
there's a thing that he says, and I've heard him say this in a couple of his lectures. Like, what if you went into your doctor and you got diagnosed with something really hardcore, like some type of cancer or something?
Sure.
And the doctor stood you up and wrapped you in a great big hug and said, we got this. I know everything we're going to do. You're a strong person. The human biology is designed for vibrant wellness, and all we need to do is this. So what if they change the paradigm from a fear-based, you hear all these stories, and I could tell you plenty of stories just in the time that I've been going, even since my dad passed away. But you hear someone gets a diagnosis where they said they have 6 months to live, and almost within 6 months, then they don't live anymore. they pass away in that time frame. And I could tell you some crazy things. So I think if you were to take out that layer of fear, you're like, we're designed to be healthy. Our body, like, look what we do to it. Look at the food we eat, the air we breathe, the things that we do to our bodies that are not in its best interest. Still, we live, and we live
surviving.
Yeah, and we're living pretty darn good. So
yes,
yeah, I think the last couple of years have been really fascinating as a full-on observer. I've just watched, like, wow.
Yeah, it's been really hard to watch too, hasn't it? Kind of switching gears on top of what we're talking about here to the source of the herbals and tinctures that you find. I know one of the things in preparing for this interview from the hill to the home or something like that was one of the comments I heard you say. Are a lot of the sources that you use near your home in Utah or your business in Utah?
So the main herb that we use, and we talked about this pre-interview, is a plant called Lomatium, and it can only be wildcrafted. It's never been successfully cultivated. And we actually now own a bunch of property in Idaho where it grows out in the middle of nowhere. But so we still wildcraft it, but we wildcraft it on our own property. And there's sourcing, to me, when you're looking at supplements, that's the most important thing. That and there's some other factors as well, but we do everything either wildcrafted or organic. And we don't put anything on our labels, because if we get something that's organic, and that we don't want to have to change the label every time. So it might be wildcrafted or it might be organic. Now, with something that's wildcrafted, you can't put certified organic on it, because organic basically means it was grown organically. It was grown by someone organically. But wildcrafted means it's kind of like, think about grapevines, if they're dry farmed, where you basically plant the grapes and you don't do irrigation, you don't spray any pesticides, you don't do anything to it. You let it grow and you let it struggle. So the roots of the grapes have to struggle. So the same with wildcrafted plants, they are in their own environment. So we don't know how much water they get, how much sunshine, what the exact minerals of the soil is. So yeah, sourcing is super important. But it's just a little bit of learning about what you're getting.
So is most of the sourcing, within like the continental United States, or is it something that you go to other continents in some of your sourcing?
So yeah, we do like a tincture of cat's claw, which comes from Brazil or Peru. We also do a tincture of a plant called suma root, which comes from Brazil. And we have a couple of things we source off the coast of Hawaii. I mean, that's in the United States. But yeah, we source some plants don't grow in the U.S.
Gotcha.
So they need to be, and the sourcing again is, everything we put things through really comprehensive testing, and test for heavy metals and different microbes, and we even test our own wildcrafted Lomatium, because we go out every year as a family and we wildcraft this plant, and we put it through a test when it first comes in, to be made into the different stuff. So it's good. Yeah.
So is Lomatium a fairly unique to you type of product, to the Barlow Herbal family?
I think that's what I'm sure that's what we're really well known for. My dad studied it for about 30 years, and it's a plant it only grows in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. So it grows in really arid soil on rocky hillsides that face south is where the plant. So it's really a bit of a particular, it's fairly hardy, but the part of the plant you use is the root. And my dad so this is a really cool story, and you might have heard this if you've kind of been looking up some of the stuff about what I do. But in the flu epidemic, the Spanish flu of 1917, 1918, there was, what the United States did is they assigned a contract physician to all the different groups and areas around the country. And there's a Dr. E.T. Krebs Sr., who was assigned a group in his area that included 2 tribes of Washoe Indians that lived near Carson City, Nevada. And and they were collecting stats and they were collecting data, and what he found is that during the epidemic, that not one person from these two tribes died. A lot of them got sick, but they were using Lomatium. And he actually took it back to his practice after the pandemic was over and started studying it and using it in his own practice. And then his son, E.T. Krebs Jr., also became a doctor. And my dad worked with E.T. Jr. For a long, long time. And I actually got to meet him when I was 16. We used to take trips with my dad on different things that he would do. And that was just my turn. And I got to go to San Francisco and meet Dr. Krebs Jr. And I was not impressed as a 16-year-old. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But now it's
focus then.
Right. I did not have the focus. Yeah. So really, Lomatium is a Native American plant that's been used for thousands of years by the Native Americans. And it's got some really beautiful antimicrobial properties. Antiviral, I believe, is its most powerful, but I've seen it go to work on things like yeast and fungus and candida and some types of bad bacteria. So it's broad spectrum antimicrobial.
Yeah. And so I guess, to follow up, that is a pretty cool story. The antimicrobial, antiviral things that you find people are using it for, I would imagine UTIs, colds. I would guess that it would work well with the COVID virus, that kind of a thing. So is it all of the above and other that you're using Lomatium for?
Yeah, I mean, anything that has a viral load. So if you think about everything under the Epstein-Barr umbrella, I've seen it work beautifully on. Sometimes it takes a little bit more patience and consistency if you've had a really chronic issue. But yeah, I've seen things that people would never dream they could kick out of their system. Or, that's why when this whole current pandemic hit, I was just kind of like, okay, I got what I need and my family, and we're good. Besides, I understand how viruses work, and I understand the importance they are in our for what they do for us. I understand that they're
right.
important. They're good.
Right. Yeah. There's so many levels of complexity when you talk about our microbiome.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's really a testimony to design.
Yeah.
So is Lomatium something that you can use in a wellness type of application?
Yeah. So, I mean, what I've been doing since I was, my dad developed a tincture out of it when I was about 14. So when I was, probably in my 30s, because I've always been very healthy, but I started taking it preventatively during cold and flu season. And I would just do one dose once a day. If I was exposed to somebody, or say I was traveling on an airplane, sure. And you know how sometimes someone would cough and you're in a closed space, and then I might take 2 doses that day. So yes, for 4 decades, I've been taking it.
Prophylactic.
Yep. Just preventatively once a day. Now, if I get something, then what I've come to believe, and this is also from all my dad's studies, is that Lomatium doesn't appear to have any organ toxicity. So you can increase the dose for an acute infection until it does the job. So for example, I've only ever had one UTI. I took about 50 drops, which is a pretty good dose for such a concentrated tincture. And I did that every hour for 12 hours. And it was gone the next day.
Wow.
So from my experience, and also raising my 2 boys and now my grandkids, if there's ear infections or anything that's acute, you simply increase the dose until it does the job. So yeah, you can use it prophylactically or in an acute situation.
And I wasn't, planning on spending a lot of time on this one, but it makes me ask the question and think of the question. There's a lot of questions that start coming to mind. UTIs are a very common problem that people deal with, especially when we get into an older demographic in the 70s and 80s. And then if we're having some issues with cognition and things of that nature. Have you found anybody in that generation that are using that Lomatium for, chronic UTIs, things of that nature? Has that been effective?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean,
okay.
we have a really beautiful range of ages of people who find us and use our stuff over the years. Because at this point now, we've been going for about 45 years, and I've been going 20 on my own since my dad passed. So I see it doesn't matter what age you are. The only thing with Lomatium, and I just need to say just a couple of things just really quick about this. there's a small percentage of people who get a one-time full body detox rash.
Right.
And
I saw that.
we have a little booklet of information, because the thing is to be front loaded with information, because then you can make the right decision. And we have also developed a protocol to help prevent the rash, because the rash is not pleasant on any level, but it's a detox. So yeah, so it's,
yeah, so
and I could talk about that forever, but I don't. Yeah.
Right. Detox can, when you've seen and listened and watched and experienced, detox can not always be pretty, but if you understand what's happening, it's kind of like exercising and having soreness. You know that it's a byproduct of the effort, not necessarily a negative product of the effort. It's a positive. But if you understand, and it sounds like you do a great job of helping people understand and educate. And I think that's the big key, right?
Yeah. To me, if people have, the knowledge, then they can make the best decision.
Yeah.
And then also when it happens to the people that it happens to, and it only happens once, it's a one-time thing.
Then the body's used to it. It's done its thing.
Yeah. From what I've come to believe, that if there is something like a low-grade viral load,
some clinical kind of thing.
Yeah. Someone might not even know they have, because I've had people that are super healthy. They do yoga, they meditate, they eat clean. They're everything about their lifestyle is as high as they can take it. And there might be someone like that who gets this detox rash and they're completely shocked. But the thing is, there was something in there. And I really, over the years, I've come to believe it's a viral load. That the body is simply, your skin is your largest organ and your body's doing you a favor.
Yes.
And it's a really good thing. And it comes kind of deep from within. And I've seen some really intense rashes over the years.
Interesting. Post rash, I would imagine you've probably got some really good follow-up that was a great cleanse, a great detox. They had to go through that rash, but I would imagine the results were worth the journey.
Every time. I mean, I've had people that because it's almost like you're losing a layer of skin. I mean, you're not like literally peeling,
mm-hmm.
but I've had people, their skin looks amazing. They've had like low grade fatigue that they could never really put their finger on. They have this amazing, it's like a big healing. Your body is doing such a smart thing. And I think that's the thing with modern medicine, is we try to cover symptoms instead of going, what is this? What is this? You get a headache, your body's saying, well, maybe you're dehydrated, drink a bunch of water, or there's something happening. So I think that with, herbal medicine on this level is sometimes not for the faint-hearted, because to be able to go through this rash and just recognize, okay, I just need to breathe. I need to drink a lot of water. I need to understand. I need to rest if I'm super fatigued here, because my body is healing. And we're not really taught. We're taught like, oh, you have a headache, take some ibuprofen. We're taught to cover these things up.
Cover the symptom. Yeah. So what are some of the other, maybe if you could touch on a couple of the other herbals, tinctures, products that you have specific to maybe a couple of conditions? I wrote down a couple of things like cancer or wellness or, aging well, those kinds of things that you're maybe people are using for more of that wellness approach, but some that are using it specifically for, a certain issue that they're dealing with. What are some of the things that in your world? I know you've got a lot.
I was going to say, that's a big question. So, some of the things that I've used, which has been really interesting, just because I find the older I get, the more I can be like, okay, well, look, I'm not like 30 years old and I have experience in the things that happen as we age and all of that. A lot of the really good adaptogens have been key game changers for me as I've, gone through, in a couple months, I'll be 61. So it's like, I've gone through a lot of normal things that women my age go through, but I feel like I've been able to go through them with a lot more, with a lot less pain and besides, I do the lifestyle things. I exercise every day. I drink a lot of water. I meditate. You know what I mean? It's like, there's things that I keep in place. Yeah, the lifestyle is really important, because you can't cover up a poor lifestyle with a bunch of supplements. You just can't do it. You can try and you might get some benefits. But I've found like cayenne pepper is a big, heart health, digestion. So cayenne pepper is something I take every day. Also turmeric, and is really, I feel like it's, if you can get a really great source and you can make it part of your routine. I think things like una de gato, which is cat's claw. So it seems like there's a lot of inflammation, arthritis type of stuff that people kind of deal with. So I would put together turmeric and cat's claw. And I've seen people have, like, they kind of go, I can't believe that pain, that inflammation and pain has gone away just from taking these two little plants. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
So yeah, I think that we have a really nice parasite cleanse that my dad developed. I don't know if you're familiar with Hulda Clark's work.
I am not.
So Dr. Hulda Clark, you should look her up. It's Hulda, Hulda Clark. And my dad worked with her for a long time, and she wrote The Cure for All Cancers, The Cure for All Disease. She wrote some really amazing books, and she was really one of the big pioneers in natural medicine, herbal medicine.
Okay.
And then we have a beautiful cancer protocol that my dad formulated 40 years ago that's still very relevant. You know, the stuff we have kind of has a bit of a learning curve, but to me, that's the level of medicinal herbals that it kind of takes you above just things like echinacea or, you know, so yeah.
Some of the deeper opportunities there.
Yeah.
Not to try to get too deep into the cancer conversation, but when you talk about the protocol that your father developed and you've used over the years, does it address a pretty broad spectrum of cancer? You know, from any internal organ cancer to skin cancer to, you know, lymphatic, broad scope type of a spectrum?
Yeah, in fact, the protocol is kind of basically three things. One of them is the Lomatium in tincture form, because I've really, just because of, again, my experience and then even just growing up with my dad, a lot of cancers have an underlying viral load, whether they're organ, skin, whatever. There can be an underlying viral load that Lomatium helps clear that piece of it out. We do a powerful tincture of Essiac or Easiac,
okay.
Which my dad worked with the formulator, the Canadian nurse who formulated that. And after he worked with her, he added 2 additional herbs to that. And that one is not only got powerful anti-cancer properties, it is a powerful blood cleanser and blood purifier.
Okay.
And that is actually something I do. I go through a bottle of that every 6 months, simple prevention. And then there's another formula my dad did that basically stimulates your immune system. And it also provides, the herbs in there provide what's called anti-mutagenic benefits. So it prevents cell mutation. So, and then if someone has something specific like, say, prostate cancer, then, you know, there are some specific things. We have a prostate formula that's specific, not just for overall health, but also helpful in prostate cancer. So you've got, you know, kind of the 3 that we suggest at the top. And there people that find us are doing some other things too. They might be doing, you know, and of course, your nutrition has got to be dialed in. You've got to go to the psychological, you know, because I believe too, even though it's a biology thing, if you study any kind of epigenetics, you got to look at that emotional component of a cause of cancer too.
Yeah, going back to what you were sharing about, you know, if you had the approach that Zach Bush, you know, mentioned, you know, if we started off with, hey, let's start off positive.
Yeah,
we've got a great system we can work with and a lot of good tools to work with. Let's start that way, get the mind in there. The mind is such a powerful, positive or negative, you know, and so I agree completely.
I mean, can you imagine if your doctor got up and started dancing like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so exciting. You're going to be so happy the way this is going to go. Like,
yes.
Imagine if the fear was released right at the beginning, like the world would look very different, very, very different. And you know what? This is the cool thing. I think that's where we're going. I really do.
Heading that direction.
Yeah. So many people are kind of tired of the old paradigm and the old constructs that keep us sick and dependent. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I agree completely. With that said, what type of herbals do you recommend for emotional well-being, just in general?
You know, this is where adaptogens are also really good, because adaptogens are just that. They help your body adapt to different stressors. So just as modern humans we're constantly living in a fight or flight, and especially these last 2 years,
Right.
for a lot of people, not everybody, there's a lot of people, I've had my moments of angst during this, but it's mostly been to the response rather than the actual viral thing. But I think that if we can learn to balance our body chemistry, and this is where, like I said, adaptogenic herbs help. So things like ashwagandha, rhodiola, maca root, holy basil, these things are designed to help balance your adrenals. It helps to let your body know that you're not running from a tiger. You're just simply dealing with modern stress. And so it gives you an herbal, something that your body recognizes as natural and just literally helps balance your body chemistry.
Yeah.
So that would be a really big thing I would suggest people take a look at, is a really good adaptogenic. You could do 2 or 3 things, or even just one thing.
Yeah, and try to blend it. Going in a little bit more into the detox, we talked just a little bit of detox, relative to Lomatium. And I don't know if you have other products that you use in detox. And I'm not sure if you have any experience with this, but, detoxing from some of the therapies that people go through in hopes to, get a successful health outcome. And sometimes that's cancer, sometimes that's whatever it is. And now we've got another issue that people are dealing with. They're post-jab detox needs. I've got patients in my office, and I've never had this happen in my practice, where I've got people coming in with neurological post-shot issues. And that's really kind of tough. And it's hard to send them, to exact protocols, because we're still learning a bit.
Yeah.
But general protocols, like glutathione or, NAD or ozone or, molecular hydrogen, all those kinds of things. But what do you got in your camp at Barlow Herbal that you use for detox, for just maybe something along that line? Or have you had any, opportunity to treat anybody, with COVID issues?
Yeah, I mean, that is all the things that you mentioned that you're using. Those are all awesome. We don't do any of those things, but, a little piece I would add is maybe do like some heavy metal detox. We do a broken cell wall chlorella, and we call it detoxifier. And we also do a spirulina, which has not only a lot of really good nutrition, and it's packed full of all kinds of vitamins and minerals. There are some detoxifying properties in that as well. But I really think that you hit the nail on the head when you said we're still learning. This is really new. I've been studying vaccines for 20 years because we have a huge group of parents who have been recovering their kids from vaccine injuries.
Yes.
And they found us pretty close right after I restarted my dad's company. So for 20 years, I've been very fascinated at the whole vaccine industry and the whole vaccine program. And so if you look back on the history of this type of vaccine technology, it's not too great.
Right.
So I think that there's a lot of things that are going to still come out that we just don't know. We don't know if you can, I don't know. I wish I knew more about it, but I think in the studies, in the attempt to make a coronavirus vaccine from 20 years ago, they have not been successful and not brought it out to humans for a reason. And I think there's still a lot of stuff that is going to come out that will give us more information. But here's the positive spin on this: human ingenuity and the beauty of modern technology in even in areas of medicine. I believe that we're going to be able to reverse a lot of damages. There just needs to be a little bit more time, so we get a chance to bring that in. I have a really dear friend who's a naturopath and a chiropractor, and he is already looking at technology energetically that can help the human body. So it might be on different frequencies and different things like that. So I think that the future is very, very positive, but we're kind of in the weeds and in the tough stuff right now.
Yeah, learning curve. And I think, one of the things I encourage my patients, and I'm encouraging them to check out different resources, and yours will be one of those, to just, I've always had this at the very base, approach. We should try to help our body be well and act as if you're going to get some diagnosis at some point or be exposed to something at some point, so that you get a foundation going that you can build on. That's a bit more than sand. It's a little bit more solid rock, kind of stuff. And so that's been my base, and that's what I'm going to continue to recommend to patients. And some of these things that I know that you're recommending to people that come to you for herbals and tinctures. So I agree. We've got a lot of learning to go. So as far as when herbals, kind of in a general sense, there's the acute use, there's the chronic use, wellness. When you talk about use, is there herbals that you said you use some herbals kind of on a wellness kind of basis, but then I imagine there's herbals in your cabinet that they're a go-to for certain situations, right? You're not always needing to use all herbals all the time, or am I off on that?
No, you're 100% right. Yeah. Yeah. So I have so some of the things that I have that I don't ever not have in my little herbal cabinet at my home. So I have a feverfew tincture. So feverfew got its name because of what it does for fevers. It's also good for headaches. But one of the things that I love about feverfew is it contains an alkaloid called parthenolide, which stimulates adult stem cells. And this is in some certain types of cancer, this one is also suggested. But just in a medicine chest kind of a way, if someone has a fever or a headache, I have a tincture of feverfew. The nice thing about tinctures is they go right to the bloodstream. Nothing has to break down. Nothing has to, digest. Everything just goes right to the bloodstream, and it acts really fast. So feverfew is something I always have. I always have cat's claw, which is, we call it una de gato, and that inflammation and pain. So if I go on a really hard hike, in a situation where I might take ibuprofen, if I didn't know about herbs, I actually do two things. I do some una de gato, and I also do some CBD.
Okay. Because
CBD is so good for inflammation.
Tincture as well?
Yep. So those things for sure. I always have Lomatium. Always. I always have LDM. You can use LDM topically. Like, I carry a little bottle of it in my hiking pack. So if you get bit by a mosquito, or I cut myself when I'm hiking or whatever, it will keep it from getting infected. And you'd be surprised how fast things like that heal when they get just that little pop of, besides there's that antiseptic from the alcohol that we use to extract. But for the most part, my stuff is really wellness stuff I take every day.
Gotcha. Awesome.
Yeah.
In doing a little bit of research here, you have a desire to teach people. You even actually have a course people can take. And so kind of share a little bit about that. People that are, again, maybe there's a lot of people that will be listening that are very familiar, some that will be somewhat familiar, but to know that, hey, there's this, not only these great product lines, but hey, this is how you kind of look at herbals and how to use herbals. Share about that course and your education opportunity.
Yeah, this is really super fun, because about 4 or 5 years ago, the things that I would share on social media, like on Facebook, for example, I would put up, on my business page, I would just put a picture of a bottle of a tincture. I would just say, if it had multiple herbs in it, I would say, here's a beautiful tincture for your lungs. And it has this, this, and this, and this in it. And I would not make any claims about what it did, but I would get censored. This was probably 4 or 5 years ago. It would be like, no one can see this. It goes against our community guidelines. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't get it, but I don't, So my course was born out of the need to be able to teach without being censored. So I can actually go super, super deep. And it's a very interactive community. So there's about 80 video modules in there at this point. Okay. And under every video, one of them I teach in depth about the cancer protocol. And I don't hold anything back in this. I can say whatever I want to say. It's a private course, and it's not available. It's private. So even the things that I have on my YouTube channel, I'm very careful what I say on there. I keep it light. I keep it basic. And so this is a place where people can actually learn how to take care of these everyday things that come at us as humans. And then underneath each module is a place for people to ask me a question or comment with each other. And I go in once a week and I answer, and I interact with them. So it's just this beautiful way it's learning. It's like how do you, if someone says, oh, my son broke his bone. Well, I'm like, go to the hospital. Let the doctor set your bone. Because it's not that kind of stuff. I don't know how to set a bone, or
right.
I do know how to do stitches, but I'm not going to teach you how to do stitches. I think, you need to use your common sense.
Right. That's great. I think that's that's really awesome that you're providing that opportunity.
Yeah.
Because it is so important. And I think we've lost so many opportunities that you had as a child. I had some of those as a child, but nowhere near what you experienced with your father's, knowledge and expertise. So what a blessing. And it's been a blessing today to have you on the show. We're kind of wrapping up here. Where can one follow up with you and, see your products, check out that course? Where does one go?
Yeah, so my website is just barlowherbal.com, and it's BarlowHerbal. And there's even a little link you can, for the course on there. You can actually go in and you can see all the stuff that's in there right now. In fact, it needs to be updated. Just last week, I added five more videos in there.
Okay.
And I've since this whole thing started, I've done an update on the current pandemic. So I do an update on my thoughts on the vaccine and my thoughts on. So it's a place for me to be real. So if you just go to barlowherbal.com, you can pretty much access and see what we have. If someone wants to send us an email, we have a 64-page booklet of information that's just packed full of a ton of information stuff we can't put on our website under each product. We have a little YouTube channel that's Barlow Herbal.
That's awesome. A great resource. So that particular manual that I guess you're saying a 64-page thing, is it kind of like something that you send out if people request it? Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah. If someone places a first order with us, we automatically just send a copy of that in with their first order.
Okay. That's great.
But someone can also just, we can send it on a PDF, or if someone even just wants the booklet before they even order anything, or if they never order anything, just send us an email and we'd be happy to send it.
People are able to order from you directly. They don't necessarily need to go through any practitioner necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. And the only place that we don't know who's selling our stuff on Amazon. We've been trying to get them off for a long time. Mm-hmm. We don't even know if it's our stuff, but Amazon is not very cooperative. And because of the learning curve that our products take, especially the Lomatium rash that happens, we would prefer that they get educated before they make a decision to jump into some of what our stuff does.
Some of your product.
So, yeah. So
well, again, I thank you for joining me. It really is a blessing, and I hope people take advantage of what you guys are doing and what you've been doing for years.
Thank you.
Providing a great opportunity for people to have better health and to address fear and address all the other things in life that we're challenged with. So just thank you again, Jane.
Oh, thank you, Damon. It was an honor to meet you. And, I think when your purpose, I feel so strong in my purpose. I hope I don't ever want to retire. I'm going to be a little old wrinkly lady saying, okay. So.
Well, we're going to need it. We gotta keep fighting the battle, as many voices as we can. Yeah.
100%. Well, it's so lovely to connect with you. And thank you again for having me on.
You as well. Have a great day.